Hello and welcome again to DST Racing Projects. I'm Dave.
And I'm Steve. Today we will be fitting some new wheel bearings, both front and rear, to our Yamaha TZ350D. Once we've done that, we will refit the rear wheel and then move on to the next stage, which will hopefully be front forks.
Yippee!
Right, here we go. First job with the new bearings is to whip a seal out. Already done that. Okay, so what we're going to do is wash out the existing grease that was put in there as a manufacturer. We'll wash it out, get it all nice and clean, and then we will pack it again with grease. Now, you can either use a degreaser of some description or brake cleaner, or in this case I'm using some nice clean fuel. It's the finest fuel we could find. It's not avgas. That's weird waste. So what I've got now is a nice clean bearing which is ready to pack. Here's one I did earlier. We will again be using Dave's famous spatula with some nice ZX1 grease, in which case we'll just pack the bearing. The reason for using petrol or brake cleaner is it allows the cleaning fluid to evaporate quite quickly, so there's no cleaning residue in there. As you can see, as I'm turning it, it's pulling in the grease quite nicely. What we'll do is we'll just attempt to get a little bit more in, so that we know that the bearing is absolutely full. Now, don't tell the missus I'm doing this, because otherwise she'll have me icing cakes. Believe you me, I'd rather eat them than ice them.
You can't tell.
No. Right, okay. Our bearing is now nicely packed. There we go. I'll just wipe off some excess with a piece of clean kitchen towel. Okay, there we go.
Right, now we're going to fit the bearings that we've just cleaned and re-greased. As you can see, the surface inside the hub carrier is nice and, well, reasonably clean. There's a bit of grease in there, which is not always a bad thing. It gives you the opportunity to create a sliding surface. Not too much, just enough to make sure that the interference fit is not impeded by anything that's in the way. Now we've got two opportunities here. We can use either use one of the old bearings to tap this one in, or we can use a suitably sized socket. I'm going to use the old bearing to start with, and also I'm going to use a copper hammer as opposed to a heavy steel hammer. Okay, this is gentle exercise which shouldn't be difficult. Okay, once the first bearing is in, we have a spacer which keeps the bearings at the correct distance apart. That also needs lubricating. It allows grease to move freely into the bearings themselves. It also gives the opportunity for the wheel spindle to be lubricated and not get stuck. So again, using Dave's spatula, we will ice this carrier and pop it in. Now what we've done here is use the wheel spindle in the bearing to make sure that everything lines up correctly. Right, now for the second bearing. What we've done is we've fitted the spindle and the spacer to make sure everything lines up, so that when we fit the second bearing, we know that everything is in line. The danger here is needing to ensure to somehow everything goes in evenly. Again, using a copper hammer so that there's little or no damage to any of the components. That, to me, sounds like it's home. There we go. Right, once the bearings have been fitted, we'll pull the spindle to make sure that everything fits in nice in line, so that there's little or no resistance when we pull the spindle out and fit it, which should allow the wheel to spin freely. You notice that this has been pre-cleaned, it's polished, so that not only does it look good, but it has every chance of working correctly. Whilst we've been putting this back together, or reassembling it loosely, we've discovered that it's got a spring washer on it, and that the nut where the spring washer has been grabbing, it's deformed, it's not tight, it's not right. So what we'll do is we'll redress that with a file before we reassemble it and make sure that everything fits nicely.